Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Halton Hills housing update. So a more positive update this week for sure. We saw inventory take a huge jump. I want to preface this entire video by saying that we are still at some of our lowest levels of 2021, but you're going to hear a lot of like, this is up, this is up. And I don't want you to forget that this is still a super scarce situation in terms of inventory. So let's look at sort of the weird week we had last week, which I think is going to equate to a crazy week next week. So in Georgetown last week, we only had 8 sales, which is pretty low, but going into last week, we were at a very low inventory number. So I'm not surprised to see those numbers a bit more conservative. All of them sold over asking though. So obviously still tons of buyers here. The good news is we had 17 new listings last week, which is a lot considering the time of year and sort of the trends that we've been seeing. So 17 new listings last week means next week when I report that, we should have like double-digit sales. A lot of these should probably transact in the next week. Good news that there's some options right now for buyers. Like there's actually some options. It's still crazy out there, but there's some things to look at, which for a few weeks there wasn't even an option. So that's good. So looking at Acton, we had no sales last week and 8 new listings. So we were sitting at like 2 listings last week. There was nothing available in Acton. So 8 new listings is great news. Inventory will be up there. So yay. Glen Williams, no sales, no new listings. Limehouse, no sales, no new listings. Rural Market, no sales, 1 new listing. So I'm not surprised that we've seen a slowdown in the rural sales because the price point in rural is crazy. You basically have to have $2.4 million and above to buy. The ones that are selling, we're seeing the odd one come up under that $2 million mark, and generally it's transacting. But right now, we're not going to see huge sales numbers in the rural market because the price point is just so far-fetched to get into it. So now looking at active inventory. So again, I want to remind you, this is way up, but this is still a very low number. So this has to be like the 5th or 6th worst week of the year. So yay, we're up, but we are still a really long way away from this feeling like we are anywhere near a shift. So last week we had 30 active listings. We are up to 45 active listings in all of Halton Hills. So that is good. A huge jump actually. And so looking at Georgetown, we only had 14 active listings last week. We're up to 23 active listings. Again, when we feel comfort in Georgetown, it's like when we're 60 plus listings. So to be only at 23 really shows how little is out there right now. Looking at our price points, under 700,000 was at 3 last week. It's up to 4 this week. 700 to 800,000 had nothing last week. There's 1 listing in that pocket right now. 800 to $1 million last week had 3. This week it's up to 4 active listings. With majority of these, I suspect basically all of them will transact by the time I update next week. They're all decent properties and I think they're all gonna go. $1 million plus. So we are up from 10 to 14 active listings. This is a better number for that price point. We have pushed 25 to 30 in our higher times this year. We have been in the single digits recently. So to see 14, we're sort of in that middle ground with stuff to see. Acton is up to 8 active listings from 2. So really nice jump from last week. Still super low, but it is going in the right direction. Stuff for people to buy. All this is really doing is picking up some of those buyers, and it's going to give us higher sales numbers in the following week. But one by one, it's a property for someone to buy, and that might mean they have something to list. Like, we need to just get more movement happening in this market. Glen Williams and Limehouse both have nothing happening. Nothing last week, no new listings, so there's no inventory this week. Those places, like, people want to live in those areas, so we see them come and go pretty quickly, and there's just nothing coming up right now. The rural market remained the same this week at 14 active listings. On the lower end for the rural market, but It's not the worst we've seen, but again, you have to have, there's one at 1.5 and then it jumps right up to 2.4. I imagine the 1.5 will likely transact this week. Usually when there's nothing in town, people stretch out to the rural market, but where the price points are in the rural market right now, I don't think we're gonna be seeing that. So overall, I'm interested next week what happens with our November numbers. I think we have seen such low units transacting because there's been nothing to buy. So I am fairly confident the number of units is for sure going to be down. Our prices though have continued to be crazy this month. Like we're talking some stuff pushing 1.82 million that last year wouldn't have gotten like 1.4. And so we're really in a spot in terms of pricing, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. So with how many new listings we've seen come up in the last week, it is sort of promising that we might have a high December in terms of listings. Like I talked about last week, the buyers are still here. So if someone lists their home in December, there are so many buyers that are still just waiting. So normally in December, we see sort of this dip down, but I think that we may have our best December ever if the inventory can present itself because the buyers are there. I'm just excited to see if November's numbers can hit over that 1.3. I think they're going to this month. We've seen some big sales. And just to think, this time last year, we were under $1 million on our average price. So big jumps this year. I will be back next Tuesday. Have a great week, everyone.